Right now, somewhere in the world, a woman is in a hospital room. There are machines tracking her baby's heartbeat. A doctor is nearby. Nurses are watching monitors. She probably has an epidural, a needle in her spine delivering medication that intercepts the signal pain travels on. She is exhausted, uncomfortable, and terrified. But she is not alone, and she is almost certainly going to survive this. For almost all of recorded and unrecorded history, none of that existed. No hospital, no epidural, no monitor, no doctor, just a woman in labor with whatever and whoever happened to be nearby. And what your ancestors actually did in that moment, how they managed it, and what they knew, is one of the most revealing questions we can ask about our own species. Because the answer tells you something not just about birth. It tells you about cooperation, about knowledge, and about the specific price we paid for becoming what we are. Let's start with why human birth is so dangerous. And I mean uniquely dangerous. Every mammal on the planet gives birth, but for most of them, it is not the kind of event that historically killed significant numbers of mothers and left families without children before those children had spoken their first words. For us, it was. The reason comes down to a collision between two things that made us human: walking upright and growing bigger brains. When our ancestors stood up, a transition that began somewhere between 4 and 7 million years ago, the pelvis had to reorganize itself to make walking efficient. A wide, bowl-shaped pelvis is excellent for moving on all fours. Upright locomotion on two legs requires a narrower, more vertically oriented structure, one that shifts the center of gravity and allows the legs to swing forward cleanly. The birth canal is shaped by the pelvis. As the pelvis changed for walking, the birth canal narrowed with it. Then, over those same millions of years, the brain expanded. Modern humans have brains that are more than 3 times the size of a chimpanzee's. The skull that houses those brains grew to match. The result is what scientists call the obstetric dilemma, a term coined by anthropologist Sherwood Washburn in 1960. The baby's head is almost exactly as wide as the birth canal. To get through, the baby has to navigate a constricted, twisting passage through a precise sequence of movements, flexing, rotating, realigning, that no other primate has to perform in the same degree or complexity. Other great apes face difficult births too, but the relative size of the infant's head to the birth canal gives them a margin we simply do not have. Human birth has almost no room for error, and it never did. That constraint had a consequence that shaped our entire species. Human birth almost always required help. Not sometimes, almost always. There is a reason no other primate has midwives. There is a reason that the anthropological and historical record across most cultures ever studied shows birth as an assisted event. Not every group. Some forager populations, like the Hadza of Tanzania, often prefer to deliver with minimal or no attendants. But across the overwhelming majority of documented human societies, experienced help was present. Women who had experienced support during delivery survived at higher rates. That behavior was selected for, generation after generation, long before anyone had words for what they were doing. The archaeological evidence tracks this across time and place. Egyptian birth bricks and limestone plaques, including a Middle Kingdom artifact held at the Penn Museum, depict mothers flanked by attendants during delivery. Written references to midwifery appear in records from ancient Greece and Rome. Figurines and depictions of assisted birth scenes have been found across independent civilizations with no known contact with each other. Studies of historical midwifery traditions, from medieval Europe, from Aztec and Maya practices, from across the ancient world, all converge on the same picture. Experienced women, present and practicing, armed with knowledge accumulated over generations and passed on deliberately. Now here is what those attendants were actually doing, because it was not just about presence. The position you've seen in every hospital delivery scene, woman flat on her back, legs raised, is not how your ancestors gave birth. From a mechanical standpoint, it is close to the worst option available. It compresses blood vessels supplying the uterus, reduces the space the pelvis can open to, and works against gravity rather than with it. It became the Western medical standard in the 17th and 18th centuries, driven partly by the preferences of male physicians entering obstetrics who found the reclining position easier to work with, and partly by social fashion. King Louis XIV of France reportedly preferred his mistresses to deliver in a position that allowed him to observe, and the posture spread from there. Before that, for virtually all of human history before the 17th century, women gave birth squatting, kneeling, or in supported upright positions. Gravity assisted. The pelvis could open more fully. Birth stools, shaped to support this posture, appear in the historical record across cultures until at least the 18th century. Ancient reliefs, medieval midwifery manuals, and accounts from dozens of independent traditions all document the same upright posture. The flat-on-back hospital delivery is a few centuries old. The squatting birth is hundreds of thousands of years older, and the attendants brought brought something else: knowledge of plants. The use of herbal remedies during labor is documented across cultures that had no contact with each other, independent traditions converging on related solutions through their own observation. Ergot, a fungus that grows on rye grain, had its first recorded use by midwives to accelerate stalled labor in 1582, though an Assyrian tablet dating to roughly 600 BC already alludes to the substance. Across different traditions, midwives had identified, through careful, accumulated observation, which plants could speed contractions, which could ease pain, which could slow bleeding after birth. This was not superstition. It was empirical knowledge, gathered over generations of women watching other women give birth, tracking outcomes, refining understanding, and passing it forward. None of it was enough to prevent what came next. And this is the part most people have never had reason to think about. Infant mortality in pre-modern populations was catastrophic. Research combining skeletal analysis of ancient burial sites with data from studies of contemporary hunter-gatherer communities points consistently to the same range of estimates. Roughly 27% of infants did not survive their first year. Close to half, around 49%, did not reach puberty. At some archaeological sites, the numbers climb higher. At the Indian Knoll site in Kentucky, dated to around 4,500 years ago, roughly 30% of individuals died in their first year, and 56% did not reach adulthood. Think about what that meant for every woman who gave birth before the last few centuries. The labor was survivable, or it wasn't. The baby was breathing, or it wasn't. And even if both survived the birth itself, the child might be gone within days, or weeks, or years. The loss was not unusual or exceptional. It was simply how it was, generation after generation, for the entire span of human existence until very recently, which raises a question that's uncomfortable to sit with. If you genuinely knew the odds, if loss was woven into ordinary life the way it was for everyone who came before, would you try again? Every person alive today is the answer to that question. You exist because women who lived through birth, who watched children die, went through it again. Not once, often many times. The grief and the attempt were not opposites. They happened in the same life repeatedly because there was no way outside of it. They lived in their moment as we live in ours. Here is what ties all of this together. Human birth is dangerous because of the same two traits that made us the most capable species on the planet. We walk upright. We think with brains that dwarf those of every other animal we share this earth with. The narrow pelvis and the oversized skull are not design errors. They are the cost of what we became. And the response to that cost, the attendant, the upright posture, the accumulated plant knowledge passed from woman to woman across thousands of generations, is also us. It is the same intelligence that created the problem working to solve it. For most of human history, what stood between a woman in labor and death was other women who had been there before and had paid close enough attention to know what helped. The next time you see a birth scene in a hospital, the monitors, the team, the needle in the spine, the room full of people and equipment all aimed at one outcome, you are not watching modern medicine replace something ancient. You are watching the newest version of a process that has never stopped. The goal was never different. Only the tools changed. The people in that room are doing exactly what your ancestors did. They are showing up, and they are using everything they know.